What's going on, everybody? This is episode 3 of Not for Thought. Welcome. Glad you're here. I'm thinking today we're gonna talk about a recent shroom trip that was pretty fucking nuts. But before that, I'm gonna smoke a little weed. I'd encourage you to do the same if you're into that. Or if you got some alcohol, beer, whatever. Or maybe this is early for you and you don't want anything like that yet. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm gonna take a quick hit of weed here. Give me just a minute. Alrighty, let's get into it. So, we'll start earlier in the day, I guess. I had planned pretty early on in the day that I was gonna drop some shrooms. At this point, I had like an ounce on hand, so I was just kind of doing them whenever I felt like, basically, for a good while. Anyways, so it was a pretty boring day, I guess. I was at work, and like I said, it was uneventful. I guess it doesn't really matter. So I come home and I'm just doing the regular thing, smoking a little weed and taking some shots, and then I decide it's time to drop some shrooms. Actually, I don't think I drank anything. I don't usually drink a whole lot, especially if I know that I'm gonna be dropping shrooms or anything of that psychedelic nature. So I get home and I think I started off with like maybe I don't know, I want to say like a gram, and then I pretty quickly was like, nah, I gotta take more than that. I think I took maybe another gram after that. And I talked about these shrooms very briefly on the first podcast. These are some fucking intense shrooms. I've dropped shrooms hundreds of times, but this kind was insane. So I didn't really know what I was in for, I guess. This was still very light. How do I explain this? I hadn't done very much of this strain yet. So anyways, I'm like sitting on my chair watching TV, and I'm watching a comedy show because that's about the only kind of show that I really watch are comedy shows. So a joke comes up, and it was probably something funny. I don't even remember what I was watching, and this wasn't that long ago. This was probably probably a little over a month ago. And a joke comes up on this show that was probably funny, but not that funny. And I just started laughing so fucking hard. I could not stop. I remember, like, shrooms do this a lot to me, where I'll take them and it'll kind of churn up my stomach, where if I've eaten something or if I haven't eaten anything, no matter what, it kind of just makes me feel a little nauseous, or maybe like I got the poopies. One or the other, almost always. And this time I got the poopies. So I go to the toilet and I just start laughing while I'm trying to take a dump. And I just can't stop laughing. I'm just laughing and laughing and laughing at nothing. I just can't stop. And eventually, I don't even remember if I pooped or not, but I get up and I walk out of the bathroom, and it is so hard for me to walk. It's like I'm just being yeeted by the shrooms across my room. Like, I don't know, it's like gravity was increased and somebody was just pushing me around. It was fucking weird. But anyways, and keep in mind I'm laughing my ass off this whole time. So I eventually make it to my bed, and it feels like I just get thrown into it. And I'm just laying there laughing like a crazy person for I don't know how fucking long. I was probably on my bed alone for like 30 minutes just laughing. And eventually I think I was able to get up and move around a little bit, and oh god, I don't know. I was just laughing, just non-stop laughing. I couldn't stop. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours of me basically just not non-stop laughing. It was really fucking weird. It was almost like I got possessed. It was kind of scary. At one point, I thought my jaw was like gonna break. You know, it was a very intense, almost unpleasant experience, but kind of fun at the same time. It was just really hard to learn anything from that. It just felt like I was being possessed, man. I don't usually feel that with shrooms at all. Like, I don't have that intensive experiences with shrooms ever, but this time, oh my god, it was pretty crazy. That was by far the craziest experience I've had on shrooms so far. And I think it was only 2 grams, and I've taken way more of that. I've taken way more than that with weaker strains, but yeah, it was a pretty memorable experience. That's alright. So, that story didn't take as long as I thought it would. So, I'm thinking maybe I'll talk about the most intense acid trip that I had. This was a while ago. This is a lot longer ago. But it was a pretty fucking nutty night. So I go and meet up with my drug dealer homie, and he hooked me up with, I think, 4 sugar cubes with LSD dropped onto them. And yeah, he was a homie. He had a giant syringe bottle. No, syringe bottle. Just a vial, basically, of LSD, and he would take that and drop that onto paper. But he was out of paper, I guess, so he decided to do it onto sugar cubes, which I didn't really care. So, anyways, I get back to my dad's house, and he's on a vacation, so nobody's home. It's just me in a 3-bedroom, 2-story house, so I got a lot of space and lots of drugs. So I drop 2 out of the 3, and one of them had 2 drops on it. So I took technically 3 tabs, is what we'll call it. And since it was sugar cubes, I think this is why it hit so fucking fast. I mean, within, I think I said 15 minutes, I was already feeling the acid. I thought I had time to like sip beer for a little while and stuff. I took 1 sip of that beer and then I was fucking tripping, and I think I had to throw it away like the next day or something because I just didn't drink the beer. I was tripping way too hard. And mixing alcohol and psychedelics is not necessarily a good combination, but that's obviously my opinion. So I'm sitting in my dad's garage, and he left his truck in there. So I decide that I'm gonna just hang out in there for a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty crazy right the fuck away. I remember it felt like I was looking at my dad's truck, right? And it looked like his truck turned into like these multiple layers. Like I could see through it in a way, like X-ray vision, but not quite as detailed as what that sounds like. I didn't see a bunch of components and stuff like that. It was almost like I could see the dimensional layers, if that makes sense. Probably not at all, but yeah, so that was pretty crazy. That was like right away. And then I look outside, and my dad had this green wall, and I remember just looking at it and seeing all this static just shoot onto the wall and then move around in this consistent pattern. And that was pretty crazy too. But then I decide I'm gonna go inside. So I go inside, and this is when it got fucking crazy. So my dad had this like lower level area. It wasn't a basement because you could see it from the main floor. You could see the whole, like, it was basically like a downstairs loft instead of an upstairs loft. And I'm looking down there, and all of a sudden I'm just like tripping balls, you know. And I see this sphere start to form in midair out of these swirling colors. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So I kind of start to lock on this, and it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, I start to see these hexagons and shapes just shooting out of this sphere that's floating in the middle of the air. It was fucking crazy. I've never seen anything quite like that. You know, I've seen some pretty intense stuff on acid, but that was fucking crazy. Seeing this sphere just form in midair really far away from me, too, and so vividly. It was crazy. So then I go upstairs, and like, I'm looking at lights, and I'm seeing these orbs surrounding light bulbs and stuff, and trippy shit. But I go and sit on my bed, and I put on some music. I don't remember what it was, but I had this blanket on my wall that was so fucking cool. It's a blanket that my mom got me when she went to Mexico, and it has this like dude. I can't even explain it. It has a person standing in the middle pointing off into the distance, and then it has like a ruin in the background and stuff, and it's super fucking dope. But anyways, I'm listening to music and just tripping so hard on this fucking blanket on the wall. It's like being pulled off the wall. It's looking 3D and shit, and it's like moving with the music in the craziest ways. It was fucking awesome. And after that, I don't really remember much, mainly because it was so long ago. I do remember at one point, I don't remember when, but like everything just turned fucking green. Like it was almost like I was looking at the underlayer of everything, and it was like I was seeing the what everything actually is, instead of all these colors and textures and how we see everything as being different. Instead, I saw everything as being the same, physically looking the exact same, and I also felt it, you know, having that oneness. It was a fucking really memorable experience. It was crazy. And I remember telling my drug dealer friend, hanging out with him again after that, telling him about all this shit, and he was just like blown away, and he smoked DMT and taken tons of acid and shrooms. So him being impressed by this experience that I had was saying something, and it was intense. It was pretty crazy. Like I said, that moment where everything just turned green, it was kind of intense in a negative way. You know, I don't know if I liked that entirely, but thinking back on it, I do think there was a lot to learn there, and I'm glad that it happened, I guess. But in the moment, it was kind of terrifying. Alright, so for this next and possibly the last story of this podcast, I was thinking I was going to talk about the time where I took shrooms at a concert with a friend, and we had to leave because it was way too crazy. So I'll just back up to when we left. No, I can't even remember that. So when we got there, it was at the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado. If you've ever been there for a concert, it's pretty cool. It's very spacious. The whole stadium itself is very nice. Inside the actual stadium and like around it, yeah, very nice. But we get there, and I don't think I was 21 at the time, so I couldn't get any alcohol. But my friend got a beer, I think, and we probably took some shots before we went in, I would assume. And we definitely had weed with us. I would have made sure of that. So we get inside through security and all that. I think my friend had something on him, but he didn't beep. I feel like when we went through security, we got lucky somehow, but I don't know. I can't quite remember. So we're chilling, and pretty quickly, I'm like, let's drop some shrooms, man. Oh, we were seeing Tame Impala. I guess I should mention that as well. And God, I wish I could remember the opener because that was literally as far as we got was to the opener, which I'll get to that. But we're hanging out, still sober, right? And I'm like, let's take some shrooms, man. And so we go to the bathroom. He pops his. I bought mine. I think he took. I think he took 3 grams of like some regular strain, and I took about 1.5 grams, maybe 2. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. It took a while for it to hit, but the opener comes onto the stage, and I immediately start to feel it. I wish I could remember her name. She was a violinist. I think that's how you say that. She played the violin, and she also sang, but she was really good. And the video playing behind her was so trippy. And I wasn't tripping that hard yet, but I could tell that I was going to, you know? And I look over at my friend, and he's like losing it. He's like wide eyed and, I don't know, speechless. And I could just tell he was out of it. So I'm like, dude, you alright, you know? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Just keeps like brushing me off, you know? And I'm like, something's fucking wrong. And I keep suggesting, like, you want to go get some water, man? You want to walk around for a minute? You doing all right? I know. I don't want to be that guy that's like constantly like, you okay, bro? You alright? Are you freaking out? What's wrong with you? Like, if somebody is freaking out, I feel like that just makes it worse when you are that guy. Totally opinionated, but anyways. So eventually he's like, yeah, let's go get some water. So it takes him a little bit to get up. Finally, he does. We get out of our seats and make it to the bathroom, or to the water fountain, and he just starts drinking water like crazy. I remember standing at the fountain for so long that like a line built behind him because of how long he fucking took with this water. He was just chugging away at the water fountain. And finally, we step back. I'm like, yo, let's let some other people get a drink. And he's just like holding onto this fence. We're still inside the stadium, or not the stadium itself, but like the area around it, if that makes sense. Where like all the vendors and, oh god, I'm just making it make less sense. Anyways, we're still inside the place, but not like near the concert area. So he's like out of it. He's like swaying all over the place as he's holding on to the fence. We're not walking anywhere, and he's just like swaying and out of it. And I'm just like, bro, what the fuck? And finally, I'm like, dude, do we need to go home? Or not home, but back to the hotel. And he's like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, all right, dude, let's go. And the best way to describe how he acted when we were walking out of there was basically like an extremely drunk person on drugs that also make it really hard for you to walk. He just couldn't fucking walk. He couldn't stand. I literally had to hold him by his collar to keep him from falling over. I basically had to hold him by a leash with his shirt. It was fucking crazy. He was so gone. And eventually we make it out of there. It was really awkward and a very strange experience. I'm sure everybody knew that we were fucked up. But we're like sitting on a bench, and he's just still out of it. He's so gone. And it takes him so long to finally like realize who he is again. We walk around this stadium outside for probably like 20 minutes, and eventually we get to an Uber, and by then he's a little bit more sober, I guess, or just not so fucking fucked up. But we make it back to our hotel, and then he's pretty relaxed. Like, he's able to talk again. He's not falling all over the place, and he was back to being a regular person, I suppose. It was pretty disappointing because we didn't even get to see Tame Impala, and then by the time we made it home, we were both pretty much good. So part of me was like, let's go back, but I was also, nah, because that would have been a lot of work. But yeah, the rest of that night, we just kind of hung out and listened to some trippy music. We actually put on the person that opened that concert because she was so fucking good and really trippy. It was actually a pretty fun night, but definitely uneventful for what it could have been, if that makes sense. I think that's all I have for this podcast. This has been Not for Thought, episode 3. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna try to have some more stories coming at you and some more stuff to talk about.